Greetings Exofighters to episode 4 of our Advanced Exosuit Guide series for Exoprimal, and in this one we'll go back to the very roots of the game and the main character in Assault Exosuit, Deadeye. As always, an annoying reminder from me that I will be making a guide for all the other exosuits too, so if you're interested, make sure to subscribe to keep up. Since it has been asked a few times now if you're interested in the very basics of all exosuits, I recommend my Ultimate Exosuits guide first to get familiar with their skills and overdrives, but in this video we'll go through the more advanced aspects of Deadeye, their most important core mechanics, all of their exosuit exclusive modules, and then the builds I recommend to use for both PvE and PvP. I'm happy to say this video is sponsored by Capcom in the form of a giveaway, and I am able to gift 3 special Moz decals for the game for Xbox and Steam platforms, so if you'd like to participate and get a chance, reply with your preferred platform under the pinned comment on this video. Very important, only the pinned comment please, and after 24 hours, 3 random lucky people will be chosen. Now let's finally begin. Deadeye is the most basic exosuit of Exoprimal, a standard assault character with an assault rifle and a grenade bomb attachment on it with a special melee attack. Deadeye is a very simple character at first glance, but actually has a pretty decent depth to it if you want to main it and be better, but I seriously think this exosuit is being slept on as it has some crazy damage output. Shooting and the grenade launcher are fairly straightforward and don't require much introduction, but the thrust attack they use is a very underutilized and misunderstood ability we should talk about. Thrust attack is a melee charge hit that the longer you charge, the longer the range and larger the impact becomes, dealing more damage and knockback. But it is being severely misused by most players, as what people keep doing is charge thrust attack until the very end, which is a giant waste of time, as there is a maximum charge you can reach and it happens very early. Thrust attack allows you to charge it for 2 whole seconds before it will automatically discharge itself and deal damage, but it already reaches maximum charge after just 1 second, indicated by your arms lighting up, so do not waste time charging further unless you need it for timing. This is very important as Deadeye's maximum potential when it comes to damage is tied to using all their abilities on cooldown as soon as possible, so you don't want to waste precious time. A second very important mechanic of thrust attack is that it deals damage in 2 forms: direct damage and shockwave damage. Shockwave damage is likely what you will see the most, and it happens when you hit dinosaurs which are relatively close, but not in direct hit range of your fist. Direct damage though is exactly as the name implies, it's when you do hit a target directly with your fists, and this form of thrust attack will deal more damage than just your shockwaves. Remember this as we'll come back to this topic. Now for Deadeye's exclusive modules, as per routine, we'll go through all of them by category and compare them and talk about which one is best utilized in what situation. Our first contenders are Damage Chain and Recharger, and immediately this is a very competitive section here as both of these modules are extremely potent and I would say are equally good. Damage Chain first is a module that will increase the damage of your Ravager rifle shots by 25% after 10 successful shots, and this will last for as long as you keep shooting without longer than 1 second break, so if you can instantly reload, that still fits into this time slot for continuous increased damage. It also doesn't matter which targets you're hitting, as long as you're hitting something, this buff will keep going. So this module is excellent for stable sustained damage increase, which I personally favor, especially in PvP, where I use my gun more than my skills. The other skill is Recharger, my favorite one, and this module is just fantastic. It reduces your active cooldown timers with each bullet hitting an enemy, and depending on what enemy you hit, this reduction varies, but it can reduce your cooldowns by up to even around 70%. I've done some tests, and while they're not 100% accurate, these values seem to be around 70% cooldown reduction if you hit enemy exosuits, around 50% reduction on larger dinosaurs, and this one was the hardest to test, but around 20% cooldown reduction if you're only hitting smaller dinosaurs. So it's a very significant cooldown reduction overall if you keep shooting and actively using your abilities, and in my view, Deadeye is the best when you use as many of your abilities as possible, as they're your greatest source of damage, especially thrust attack, but that's mostly applicable only to PvE. For our second tier, we've got Shot Grenade versus Piercing Thrust. In my opinion, this is a straight up PvE versus PvP option, but I'm curious what you think about these two. Shot Grenade will modify your grenade launcher that now it will shoot in a straight line, pretty much like it was a rocket, so very good for long range combat and snipes, and additionally it also increases its damage by 20%, which is also a nice boost. As I mentioned, I think this is best used for PvP when you're trying to precisely hit those far away exosuits. In PvE, I don't feel this one has a very good niche, unless you just dislike using thrust attack. Now, Piercing Thrust on the other hand is a PvE powerhouse, as it increases your thrust attack's direct hit damage, so point blank range damage, remember, by 40%, which is a massive boost, and along with it, also very important, it increases your knockback distance, which I believe also increases the overall knockback and stagger power of your thrust attack. As discussed at the beginning of the video, thrust attack is possibly your best damage in the game if used correctly, and combined with Recharger and properly hitting dinosaurs in the face with it, it can damage all the way up to around 1200 damage with very short cooldown on it, making Deadeye's large dinosaur killing ability one of the best, if not the best in the game. The knockback increase is also very important, as the way dinosaurs work in the game, they have a hidden stagger meter that I believe is connected to either damage dealt or knockback effects dealt to them, but in my experience it seems to be knockback, as after equipping this module I noticed I managed to topple larger dinosaurs a lot easier to reveal their weak spots, so that's also another huge PvE bonus while using this module. So all in all, both are great, but I don't think you can make good use of thrust attack in PvP, except for very rare moments if you manage to get close and push enemies off ledges or such, but I don't think it's worth it as a defensive module. Finally, our third modules are Reload Dodge and Dive Dodge, both changing what your dodge gives you, and both of them I would say are equally good depending on what you want. On level 5, neither of these modules increase the cooldown time. Reload Dodge does exactly what you would expect. Upon dodging, it will fully refill your magazine and allows you to shoot continuously, which is great for both Damage Chain and Recharger if you use those modules, as it will maintain their effects by keeping up your damage boost of Damage Chain or allowing you to further decrease your cooldowns with Recharger. Dive Dodge on the other hand is a defensive dodge ability, which is also very nice, as next to the flinch protection and increased distance that Dive Dodge offers, it also gives you 50% damage reduction for the duration of 3 seconds after dodging, which is really nice when you either want to get out of trouble's way or you need that little bit of protection to survive. So both options are very solid depending on if you need more survival or more offense. Now we have arrived to exosuit builds, and I have two that I would use and recommend both for PvE and PvP. For PvE, I prefer to use Recharger, Piercing Thrust, and Reload Dodge. This combination will ensure that my Deadeye will deal as much damage as possible through constant use of both the Grenade Launcher and Piercing Thrust, since that is overall more than Damage Chain if you keep using both skills, and Piercing Thrust after a bit of practice, as I said, is an absolute monster of an ability that I've grown very fond of, and if you're afraid of it being too dangerous, I found that combining it with a shield rig really helps you get close for smacking dinosaurs. The cooldown reduction here is also important, I think, as on higher difficulties you tend to get really overwhelming hordes, and the more area clearing abilities you can use, the better. Otherwise, you can always use them for single target too, since it's still efficient that way. For third slot, I use Reload Dodge to get the maximum out of my Recharger, but in low healing environment, Dive Dodge is just as good here. For the PvP build, I would recommend using Damage Chain, as you'll spend more time shooting at exosuits I think than just shooting grenades, but especially more than using your thrust attack. And even though exosuits give you the best cooldown reduction, I feel Damage Chain is overall better, especially when you need to get rid of tank shields. Shot Grenade we use for long and more precise poking ability with our Grenade Launcher, but I think if anything this is a module slot that can be changed to anything you would prefer, but I like to have a precise explosion when I need to interrupt revives or objectives. Otherwise, I would recommend using Rig Loading module here and combine it with Shield. For the dodge, I use Dive Dodge, as both the dodge distance and the 50% damage reduction is crazy good for PvP, so this one I think is a no-brainer. For this PvP build, I would still recommend using Shield Rig so you can swap between the damage reduction of Dive Dodge and Shield, thus giving you a lot more staying power on the battlefield, and combined with Rig Loading module, this can be even better. And so that is it for this Advanced Assault Deadeye guide, everyone. I think Deadeye is very underappreciated exosuit, mostly because they are the basic exosuit of the game and everyone is all over Barrage currently. But I found Deadeye actually better and more powerful than Barrage if played properly, while Barrage is overall just easier to perform well. Hope this video was useful to you all. If you have any questions, leave them below along with your tips, or if you agree or disagree about some things I've said. And this time around, instead of asking which exosuit I should cover next, I'm quite interested which exosuit is your favorite so far in Exoprimal. Thank you for watching, Exofighters. That's it for this video. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. I'll see you all the next time.